knock it over on the floor. My luck.
God bless it.
Like
What's
the
with
one
that
day it
chair?
fell, that was the
I'm
best.
bringing a new one. I have a whole bunch in my house.
What we need is
That
his
is
Bud
cool.
Light chairs. Remember those? We just blow them up. That's some quality furniture.
If you like
Yeah.
stools, the photography stools where you can kind of raise and lower them, they're real quiet. Usually made of plastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we gotta get some of those.
I just need a brown bar stool.
There you go.
It's made of wood. You know, keep it simple.
All right, Ryan, quiet on the set. Ready?
We ready?
Yeah. Welcome to the 101, brought to you by Whiteside Chrysler Dodge Jeep. I'm Michael Morris, sitting with me, as always, my buddy, Dr. Ryan Brown. Doc, how are you?
Great. I think today's going to be a creative day.
Oh, is that some foreshadowing? Are you
I
trying
think
to
we're
say
just
something?
a bunch of creative people here.
See
We're
what
going
you
to have a
did there.
creative day.
Well, we've added a little bit of that creativity, and watch me blow this name.
Oh.
Now, our guest today is Ewa Chamberlain. Did I say that right?
You got it.
All right, I nailed it. So I'm going to mess that up later.
Not to be mixed up with Wilt.
No, they look similar. What I'd like Ewa to do is, first of all, so when I saw the name at first, I thought that Rachel had typed it wrong. And I didn't, like, I never like to say anything like, what are you doing? So then he comes
I
in
hear you
and
say that to her all the time.
yeah, well, and then I get slapped. But when she said that, or sent this thing over, I heard him being introduced in the hallway, and I thought, why is everybody saying this is his name? That is his name. Ewa, can you tell people a little bit about your background, who
Yeah,
you
for
are,
sure.
and family and all that?
Yeah. My name is Ewa Chamberlain. I grew up as a traditional artist, drawing, painting, sculpting, really into the arts. Really thought that my pathway in life was to be a sculptor. Worked mostly in clay and metal. And
I think
then-
we've all shared that same
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
that we were all going to be that good. In our class, I could make a dinosaur like you wouldn't believe.
Oh,
Yeah.
you should have seen me with Play-Doh.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you guys can open a shop together.
Yeah, Play-Doh, dangerous. Don't eat it.
Yeah.
So, a little too salty. Not a
Oh,
good.
that's what happened.
Yeah, not a good garnish. So, but yeah, growing up really into art and eventually got into design. A friend of mine had a version of Photoshop that I could get access to, and I was making designs with him, and then that led me into photography, which I enjoyed the most. To be honest, I think that the thing that really connected me with the photography as an art form was that it wasn't as messy as a lot of the other art forms that I had done, and it didn't require as much babysitting as like my clay sculptures that I had to constantly keep moist and nurture. So growing up, I was really into art, really focused on like being creative, and so photography started to really take hold, and I started making photographs for fun, and people really loved what I was up to and wanted to hire me to do the same for their families, for their friends, for their photographing their kids. And so my business was born in 2008 out of a passion for photography and for teaching as well, because I had the opportunity to share with other artists what I was doing, and that became an important part of my career as well. So from 2008 until now, I've been growing my business steadily over time and really looking at like where do I fit in creatively to this process. So all the while being supported by my amazing wife Erica, who works at OSU. She's a neuropsychologist. That's how we landed here in Columbus. She works at the Ohio State University, and my daughter, who's 13, her name is Evelyn, and she is my biggest fan. So very fortunate to be
Does
able
she
to.
also work at OSU?
No.
Okay, just
so yeah, not yet. But she definitely plans on going there for school, and yeah, she works with me, helping me out with my studio, and likes to kind of use that as her pseudo job as she's entering 8th grade. So, but really fortunate to have an amazing family who supports me and loves me and encourages me to stay creative and to focus on what my passion is. So I've been growing my company since 2008. Started off just doing photography, and then over time started video production, and then have recently got into working in virtual reality, creating 360 experiences. And what connected all the dots for me when it came to going from photography, going into video, working in all these different mediums, whether that was like my original sculpting background, to now is like, having creative ideas and then implementing those ideas. I found that there really isn't any challenges that I'm up against when it comes to creating things that I can't solve creatively. So I focus a lot of my time now on doing creative direction and consulting, and really helping people figure out what is it that they are trying to create, what is the problem they're trying to solve, and how can we take a creative, inventive, inspiring approach to that, while being able to be mindful of whatever their limitations are, whatever their challenges are with their business or with their project. So it's been an amazing journey so far, and I'm excited for what the future looks like for me and for my company, because as technology becomes more and more predominant in this industry, the need to evolve and to really take on new ways of working is imperative. So it's a fun challenge on a daily basis.
Two things. One, that was the longest intro ever, and it was fantastic.
Thank you.
Because I was literally listening, and I'm like, I hope he doesn't get worn out, because we got another 58 minutes.
Oh yeah, no, I won't wear it out.
But I want to double back to your business came from your passion,
Yeah.
right? You developed it because it was something that you're like, you just enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, if you listen to the Les Browns of the world, Tony Robbins, they'll say, whatever your passion is, go do that.
Yeah.
But how did you start? Like, it was almost by accident, right? You're creating things, and people are like, I really like that, and I'll pay you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you see that you can make money from this? Because there has to be a part where you start to see like more people would want this, but you got to take that leap of faith to start that business.
Yeah.
So what's that first move? Do you say to your wife, listen, we're going to be eating a lot of crackers, but I really want to do this because I'm passionate about it? Like, what's that look like on day one?
Yeah, and for me, day one, there was no day one. There was no like, okay, here we start. It really was just making good decisions that felt good and that were a win-win for me and whoever I was working with, and knowing that I was never going to know everything, but that I could figure it out. And I think that's key for a lot of people who are starting anything. From my experience, you won't know everything, and the more you focus on what you don't know, the harder it becomes to just to put one foot in front of the other and to take it one day at a time. So, looking back, like I say, I started my business in 2008, but it's very likely, like, if we really unpack that more, I started my business when I was in high school, when I had that first vision for what my business could look like, with, combining educating, clients and students with, the creative direction, with content creation and photo video format. And so, I can't really think of that moment where I said, I'm starting this. I remember the moment in which I had the vision for my life in the future and what I wanted to feel like and what I wanted to experience and how I wanted to bring other people along with me. And then that became like a business one day.
Well, so you're saying in 2008 was when you actually started the LLC. Like you said, hey, I'm going to have a business. It's going to be called this, and I'm going to start. Did you, to kind of follow up with what Mike was saying, were you already selling yourself and your projects and your work, and then you said, hey, I think I have enough clients out there, or clientele, or enough business where I can do this full time? Were you working somewhere else? Did you have a second job, or how did that work?
Yeah, for sure. So like unpacking like the way that it unfolded over time, I was working in the restaurant industry, an upper management position when I first started, getting into photography, and when people first started asking me to do work for them. And really,
so you were kind of doing it on the side. You had your job, you were managing a business, and then, on the side you were doing what your passion was.
Yeah.
And then that kind of started turning into doing it more and more and more.
Yeah.
And then you eventually said, you know what, I think I have enough here to start an LLC.
Yes, yeah. So the lead up to that early, the 2008 period, that was when I was kind of piecing it all together, and that was also when I was realizing there was a need, because it wasn't until that period where I said, oh, okay, here's this is how it looks. And it's never, when you're working independently, it's always messy.
So did you jump in, speaking of being messy, did you just jump in head first, quit your management job, and that's when you're like, hey, I'm all in? Or was it a gradual?
I'm thinking of that scene in Half Baked when the guy's quitting and like, if you, and
Yeah.
you're cool and I'm out of here. Is that how you quit?
No. Thankfully, the universe made it happen for me. My wife got a job at U of M, and she was working there doing her residency, and we moved, and so my position didn't transfer, and so I had the opportunity at that point to just basically say like, okay, now's the time. So the decision was both because of what I learned from the skills, but also moving into a whole new.
It was a transition period of
Yeah.
your life where you're
Yeah.
like, hey, if I'm gonna do it, this is the time.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
kind of the best way to do it. We're
Yeah.
moving states, and I don't have a job, so I
Right.
guess I could start. But
Yeah.
that's the part where you're starting all over, right? You know nobody in Columbus. Even though the entire time I was looking at your information, I thought it was UA Creative Studios because you were located in Upper Arlington.
That's
thought,
what I
well,
assumed.
Yeah, but it couldn't have worked out better because if you were
I
in
knew
Hilliard,
BJ
you
Thomas
would
would
get
be
no
excited.
business.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jim knows everything about this area, and he's already covered it all. But when you get here and you start this business, you're starting from scratch, from the bottom up. You don't know
Yep.
anybody.
Yep.
What's the first call you make?
Oh, and were you in a different location when you started it?
Yeah, so I moved here in 2013 to Columbus.
But you originally started in 2008. Where were you?
2008, I was actually down in Cincinnati,
Okay.
and then I moved up to Ann Arbor, and that's
Right, you
where.
said U of
Yep.
M, yeah.
Yep.
So
we
you
there
were
for about
starting
3.5
this
years.
business from scratch with no real connections.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right now. I'm scared for him. That's
Right.
why I can't wait for the rest of the story because I'm thinking you don't know anybody in Columbus and you're going to start a creative agency.
Yeah, it's one thing to be ramping up and you've been doing business on the side and you're in an area that you're familiar with, but to just move, start from scratch, that's crazy.
So like key is like finding people that like really share. In my case, I found some amazing people who shared my vision for what UA Creative of the future could look like. So I got connected with Erica Kaufman, who her name is Erica Santiago now.
So we'll still just call her Kaufman.
Yeah.
She's not here to correct us.
So Erica and I got connected through one of the small business classes here in town, and we hit it off, and we both shared a common vision for like what the future looked like. And so we got together, and through her support and through her encouragement, and also she had people here in town that she knew. She'd been here much longer than I had. We're both originally from Cincinnati. We didn't know that until after we met. I was able to like surround myself with people like Erica who were already doing amazing work, who were passionate and saw what I saw to be the vision of UA Creative Studios, and were like willing to jump on and to help me make that happen.
And if I could back up, did you say you already knew Erica, or did you kind of randomly meet her through all of this?
I met her, after I moved here. I was going through a small business development class, and
so you kind of attracted each other.
Exactly.
Gotcha. That's really cool.
Yeah. So people like Erica, Erica works now as our creative services director. Like we've been working on UA Creative Studios this whole time together, and then also through my love for education and teaching, I've built a photography community that really became like kind of the foundation of starting the business over here in Columbus, and that was familiar to me. I did that in Ann Arbor as well. And so I built this community of people who are interested in learning more about photography, specifically getting more creative, like expanding, their world when it comes to like what they're capable of, and taking those relationships and using that as an opportunity to start making, making friends, growing my connections, and then laying the groundwork for what would eventually become a creative agency here in Columbus.
At the time that you're doing it, I'm going to go back to the Malcolm Gladwell book where it's the hours you put in, but also people will say it's random, but it's not, right? So you get to Columbus, which is one of the top, typically this market is ranked anywhere from 31 to 38 depending, and it's with the influx of people coming in as the city grows, really I think we're about 31, 32, but this is the test market for every fast food chain, for every, not like a Walmart, but big box store. If it works in Columbus, it should work everywhere else. So it's kind of a media hotbed, but it's insulated because there's only X amount of radio stations, only X amount of TV stations. It's not like any other market. But there's a lot that's going on here where there's a lot of experimenting that's going on.
Yeah.
If you were in Ann Arbor trying to do this, you could still be successful, but you're in a hotbed when people need creativity and they need somebody that's up on social media, SEO, and that. When you jumped in, did you find that the water was warm, or did you have to really dig around? Because you had somebody that was really networked that could help get you in, but selling a concept, selling something that I'm telling you about versus I can't hand it to you, right? So it's like when we're doing radio commercials. I can't hand you a radio commercial. I can let you listen to it, but at the end of the day, it's all auditory.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to create something with a vision you have, but you have to sell it to the other person. what's that like when the person on the other end has zero creativity? Like Jim was saying, he has no creativity, and you're trying to explain what you do. How does somebody buy into that?
Yeah. So for me, every opportunity to interact with someone new has the potential to unlock something that they already know. There's something that they realize what the problem is, and they want to solve it with some sort of solution. And ideally, if we're working together, the solution is to have some sort of creative content that they can use to promote or to educate or inspire their audience. And so when it comes to meeting with someone and getting them like excited about what's next, a lot of it comes down to being able to clearly communicate what is the vision for this project. Like, what does that look like? And so a lot of times people have the nuts and bolts of what it is that they're up to. They understand who their audience is, they understand their pain points, they understand what it is that they want to, where they want to go with their business. What they don't understand is how that fits into being more creative and having engaging content. And so the nice thing is that gives us a foundation to build off of, because they have all the information that they hold and is proprietary to them and their business, and then we have creative ideas and we have creative solutions to the problems, and that takes different forms. So the beautiful thing is, like, really all I have to do is be a good listener and to really connect with their business and understand it, and the ideas will naturally land for them because they are built around the reality of what is it we're working with, what are our resources, and then combining that with we already know these things, let's make sure that this isn't something that's completely out of left field and that people aren't going to really connect to. Let's make sure that it is actually going to be something
it
that
seems like you have to be
sense.
It seems like you have to be very intuitive, and this is a great lesson for people listening that are in sales or want to be better at sales, or anyone who's a business owner, entrepreneur. Obviously sales is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
You can be as creative as you want, but if you're not selling you or your product, you don't have a business. You need customers and to make those sales. And what I gather from people who are very creative, especially when I used to teach and when I still do teach a lot of sales training, you can't teach somebody to be intuitive. You can explain what it is, but you can teach people how to listen. And one of the key things you said is you have to listen, and based on what they're saying, kind of be intuitive. And you can't really be intuitive if you're always talking and always trying to be the person directing and painting the picture. But if you listen, you can use that part of your being, if you will, that can sit back and observe and say, this is what this person wants, this is what this person needs. I can see that vision, and after you gather enough data and information, you can then say, boom, here's what you need based on everything you've told me. And I think that's what sales is a transference of knowledge and education.
Yep.
And being that you're creative and doing that every day, that's got to be a lot of fun.
It is. Yeah, it is. And that's something that I'm very fortunate to be able to do on a daily basis.
Was that something that you felt that you had to groom yourself over the years, or was it something that felt really natural?
Supernatural. My natural state is to support and to connect people and to be able to help them solve problems. And so, if I could just spend every day coming up with ideas that really connect with people and make them happy, and then to support them in creating those ideas, that's that would be the one and only thing I do. Is just
Did you get into business because you wanted to make $1 million, or did you feel like you were wanting to go into business because you really felt you could serve a lot of people in a really neat way?
Because Ryan has $1 million. Depends on what your answer is.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I started my business, I didn't even know that I could make $1 million. So, so the answer is no. I definitely,
Interesting.
yeah. I mean, I'm a young guy, and I started my business, a while back. But I also know that, for me, I did it because it felt good, and I loved being able to, the reality is when you see someone experience what you've created and they worked with you to create that feeling that they have, you can't replace that.
Right.
And so, being able to support people in that way has been very fulfilling. And so I mean,
there's a lot of gurus out there, Mike, that say that the whole point of existence, of being a human, is to not only serve, but to be creative, to be out there and doing things and creating things, whether that's music and art and building a business,
radio shows,
branding, just being out there and in creating something. It could be a matter of some people would call it manifesting. You know, you're just out there. You're coming to a mindset of something you would like to desire on this, you know, in this universe, in this planet, and at this time, and you go out there and you make it happen. You create it, and
Well,
it's very powerful.
it's like you always say, whether it's on the show or outside of it, and I don't want to speak for you, but it's one of our basic human needs is the need to connect. And to connect with other people. Like, this show is the best way for us to connect with people we would never meet with, right? It's cool to sit in the green room with him and talk about just him, like his family, you know, what he's doing, because he's not saying, boy, I sent off a bunch of invoices and I got a bunch of money. He never says that, right? So when we're thinking about it, we are all here to create something, and I think the frustration is those people who are not willing to put themselves out there,
Or they're creating for somebody else.
but see, you're still creating, and again,
Right.
At the end of the day, whatever he's making really doesn't belong to him anymore, right? I'm giving you that idea. The person that came up with the concept for the Wendy's logo made it to sell it. They might have had feelings behind it, but now you no longer own it. That's what I think is cool. Is it's almost like you look at it like raising a child that somebody else is going to walk down the aisle, and then at that point you've got them from A to B. That's the beauty of what you're doing. Like, what we're doing creating this show is just creating an opportunity for somebody that no one's ever heard of in most cases to get to tell their story. To me, that's the juice for this. It is somebody telling their story, because that's supporting themselves, their family, other employees. Like when you're talking about you have a creative director, that must be a great feeling when you get to pay that person. But you only get to pay it when everybody's rowing the same way in that creative direction, and you still have to sell it, and you have to sell somebody on your concept, and they have to believe in it. They're not buying it, they're buying in, right?
Yeah. So I mean the connection between like what you were saying as far as creative direction in professional life and the creative direction in personal life, I see those as being very much like intertwined. Like, a lot of people aren't necessarily, like, you talk to, you know, 100 people in a room. I introduce myself, you know, to people all the time, and 90% of the time, you know, 9 out of 10 people are saying, I'm not creative. Like, they're themselves are not creative.
Right, they're coming in going, I don't know, I'm just not creative, and that's why I'm hiring you. And
It's
you're
the same
like,
person that can build a house with a piece of paper also says they're not creative.
Right,
Yeah.
but you're sitting here going, hey, yes you are, let me bring that out of you.
Exactly, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
being able to like inspire and empower people to see that, whether that's in their personal lives or in their professional lives, like as humans, we want to create things, we want to make things. We have a desire to have an impact, like no matter what scale. And so I think that being creative in whatever way people have time for or can make time for is imperative to happiness. Like, for me and for the people that I work with, like, it's all about having as much of an impact and really unlocking the possibilities through being creative in whatever capacity we can with whatever projects are available.
Before we go to break, because there's so much more I want to touch on, how can people get a hold of you if they want to see your stuff or even hire you for a project?
Yeah, so we have a beautiful website that has a lot of our work on there, some of our services. It's uacreativestudios.com. And then, you know, reaching out to me through the website, my email, my phone number's on there. And people can also connect with me on social media. It's really easy to find me. My first name is spelled U-A, and then Chamberlain for most of the social media handles I have. You know, that's an easy way to find me.
I noticed even on Google, if you type in creative photography, you're like the first one that pops up. That's pretty cool.
Oh, thank you.
He's
So,
the most
you just
creative person on Google.
Google creative photography.
Listen, you gotta trust Google. They know what's going on. That's right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was a cheap pop. We're gonna go to break, but when we come back, I want to talk about when somebody doesn't get it, and then I'll give you an example, and then you tell me. I'm sure Ryan knows these examples, but I'm sure you see it every day, and I want to see how you overcome that. You are listening to 101, brought to you by Whiteside Chrysler Dodge Jeep. We'll be right back. You good? Okay.
Yeah.
Anywhere specific you want to go? Like, I got a bunch of questions. If there's something you want me to get in.
I've got a bunch of questions.
Oh, well, I have more questions than you do.
I mean, I definitely, so where the business is transitioning into, because like we were focused primarily on services in the past, and where we're going is like really supporting on that like creative direction and consulting side. I really love the opportunity to kind of continue to unpack what it looks like to support people with, finding direction, ideally creative direction, and like what that looks like for them, because it's a key component to our business and what we're up to. So, whether that's in someone's personal life, like there are people that we support in just like figuring out what is it that they care about, what is important to them, and turning that into a photography project or turning that into a video project, and really like focusing on that. And it fills them up in such a tremendous way, and it also fulfills a desire that they've had for a long time, and they just didn't know what was missing. Like how do they achieve that feeling of accomplishment, happiness, purpose, and so whatever we can work in when it
Can
comes
you
to
do
that.
that exact speech again?
Of course.
Just kidding. Okay, but so I want to get into one thing and then we'll go right into transition.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we got 27, 28 minutes, so plenty of time.
Rhino, you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep. Welcome back to the 101, brought to you by Whiteside Chrysler Dodge Jeep. I'm Michael Morris, still with the doctor, Ryan Brown, still with UA Creative Studios
Still
and
here.
UA Chick. I'm introing the guy and you blow the whole thing. I got his name right and you jump right on top.
Well, I just wanted to make sure you knew we're still
I
here.
appreciate it. I appreciate that you're here, Ryan. I want to get into, we were talking about when people buy in, right?
Mhm.
You got a creative direction and the feeling you get when they buy in.
Mhm.
And I said I want to give an example of when you think you've got something, you've nailed it,
Mhm.
and you go to pitch it to them because now it's time for them to buy it, right? Because every business is supported by sales. And the person across from you, their mouth is wide open, chin on the table, they don't get it.
Mm.
First of all, what's that feeling like for you? Because I can tell you it's the most frustrating thing in the world when I think I've nailed it and you don't get it.
Yeah.
What's it like for you? Because again, mine is concepts,
Mhm.
right? Yours is here's what it's going to look like, here's the layouts, here's this. What's that like? Because now you've gone to sell it, you believe in it, and they look at you like you got three eyes.
Yeah. This happens more often when we're trying to establish something that may be like could completely align with the brand, but maybe the people that are like higher up, they just really feel like it'd be too far outside of their comfort zone. Their comfort zone, maybe the audience would absolutely love it, but so like incorporating humor, really pushing boundaries. Like if we want to make a statement or if we want to align with a specific, way of being, lifestyle. So a lot of times for me, when that happens, when I pitch an idea that might, let's just use humor because that's an easy one. I love, everything about comedy. I'm not necessarily the funniest guy in the room, but
Ryan's hilarious.
I can appreciate, funny anecdotes and stand-up comedy and everything that goes along with it. But when we're trying to kind of guide the conversation and the creative direction in the form of like, let's really think about going outside of like what people would have expected, and that doesn't land. For me, I try to take the approach of like, I'm willing to go to bat for this idea, but it's not, at the end of the day, it's their business and it's their,
It's
like,
just
they're
one
protected.
idea.
Yeah, it's just one idea. So typically, we have, some more ideas to contribute, and ideas are coming from, all across the table, not just from our team, but from their team as well. And so, if it doesn't land, it doesn't land. I'm not married to any of my ideas. I don't take it personally. I try to stay as neutral as possible because.
But do you have one in your back pocket? Because I'll give you an example. Do you remember the Kmart ad where they didn't run it on TV for almost a year? And it was an old couple, and they're standing in a Kmart, and we've all been in a Kmart. We love it. Ryan gets all his clothes there for weddings.
How could you tell?
But they're standing there, and the guy says, "I just shipped my pants," right? And so you go, "What did he just say?" And there's a person laying in a bed because they had bedding, and he's like, I just shipped my bed." But when you it's hilarious. It's a great concept, but they loved it, but were afraid to roll it out because they thought the public would get upset. So somebody thought this is great, so it was an online campaign. It got shared millions of times because it was hilarious the way they did it, because they were using older people, younger kids. Great concept, right? And everybody says, I want something funny like that. Well, here's the problem. That's a one-of-one idea, right? But somebody along the line loved it, but I want to bury it.
Mm-hmm.
If you use humor, I feel like it's a great thing, but then everybody wants to be funny.
Yeah.
If you're not a funny person, if the CEO of the company is not a funny person and he's just a nose to the grindstone guy and he doesn't get it,
Mm.
do you have to bring a second concept and go, that was just the first one, if you don't like that, I got this? Or do you go back to the drawing board?
Typically, I have a second concept or in place already, just as like a, because a lot of times you can have a great concept and then either add or remove humor from that concept. I don't typically go in like the only way this is going to work is with humor. And to be honest, maybe I just need someone who's more funny to pitch the ideas.
I'll do it, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, Ryan will come with me. He's not as funny, but
Yeah.
he's
Hilarious.
like 3/4 funny.
Yeah.
I just always look at it when we do campaigns. I look at it, and this is a tried and true whatever, because you're really in marketing and advertising. You're doing the creative part,
Mhm.
but nobody can talk about their business more passionately than the person that owns it. So if I'm asking you about, like, your face lights up, you're excited, you can't wait to talk about it. If I ask you to talk about Ryan's company, Freedom Windows, even if you know about Windows, you're gonna just regurgitate facts, but you're not gonna be explosive about it. If I ask him about his business coaching, he lights up. That's why we always have clients do their own spots, because again, it comes through. You're excited to tell someone about this.
Right.
When you're doing a creative project for somebody, you almost have to share that same enthusiasm, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
you
yeah.
got to be able to turn it off if they go, no, that's not what I want. You're
Yeah,
like, I knew you wouldn't like that, but here's plan B, right?
Yeah, I mean, having like vibrating at the level of like excitement and energy that you get to like inspire the room is one thing, but not being so attached to that concept that you isolate, because it's very easy for people to want to like treat everything like an on-off switch,
Right.
Or a valve where, it's like, oh, I really like that, but like I really don't like this at all, and they don't see where things can connect, where things can really, coexist. So you have to be careful if you seem too attached to an idea, like then they associate that idea with your business, and then if you're not the right fit based on the fact they don't like the pitch, then then you're back to the drawing board, or you might be out of the job depending on how your business structure is. So I'd say, like, for me, I try to always give like the initial impressions that like we're not married to any concepts, like everything's on the table, there are no bad ideas, and what we want to do moving forward is like collaborate. And so a lot of times, like, by the time we get to that point where we have like a really solid foundation for whatever the script is, whatever the concepts are for the visuals, the client's already bought in, and so we mitigated a lot of that risk and eliminated a lot of that extra time put into like coming up with like these pitches that won't ever see the light of day. But we're also working mostly with like small to mid-sized businesses, so the process is a lot more intimate. We're not pitching to executives.
Right. And you don't have to weed through 10 people. It might be just one. You've got to get them to buy in.
Yeah. So.
I want to talk about, we're in a very content-driven world.
Mhm.
You're coming up with content constantly, but what's the process? Is it a whiteboard? Like, for me, it's always whiteboards. Like,
Yeah.
if someone's got a whiteboard in their office, like, I always ask that question, like, for a meeting somewhere, do you have a whiteboard? Because you might not get what is here.
Yeah.
So I can further illustrate it here, like, and then just take a picture of it, and you can keep it. Like, here's how this funnel works, right?
Yeah.
That's how I do it. If they don't have a whiteboard, I'm like, I'll write it on the back of this piece of paper. But how do you do it? How's it go from original concept to development?
Yeah, so for us, a lot of times we're starting off with like, here's the agenda, and we'll kind of have that up on a screen so that people can see like what the layout of we call it a discovery session. So it's a session dedicated to discovering things about their business and to start building that foundation of understanding. And so we start with the discovery session, and then that goes into an ideation session after that. So once we've discovered all the information we need about their business and what makes it tick and who their audience is and what the pain points are and what their objectives are, then we get a transition into like the more fun, ideation session where we literally are just coming up with ideas related to that. So that could look like coming up with some visual aids. So either we create those in-house and show them like what things could look like depending on the project, the scope, and everything. Or it's something we find reference material online, and we can kind of give them some general ideas of what things could look like. But once we start kind of getting them excited about what things could look like, then we lead with the ideas, because we found a lot of times people, if like I used to do this, to my wife all the time, where I'd be like, Erica, I have this idea for this photo I'm going to create, and I would explain it to her, and she'd just be like, it's lost on me. I have no idea what you're
So
talking
it
about.
has to feel good
Yeah.
to get that kind of support at home.
Well, she just couldn't visualize it, and so we try to lead with some visuals whenever possible, so that people can start to get the idea of the way that things will look, or the way that the pacing, or whatever it might be. So that way, when they start to hear the idea in their minds, they're forming that image, and it may not be exactly what it looks like, but it's a lot closer. So once we've come up with the general, like we've ideated on what does this look like, feel like, what do we want it to accomplish, then we really focus it down into the final state, and then within giving a little bit of wiggle room, because everything can and will change.
Right.
You might cast this person and they're no longer available, or they get sick or something, and so we try to again, not get too connected to any one particular thing. And the process of creating the content on the day of production, after we've gone through all the pre-production stages, is the most fun and most enjoyable. And we try to get every person on their team that will is available and will be involved, because that's like the magical part of the day. And we find the more involvement we have when people are working with us to create the content, not by working with the lights or anything like that, just being on set, the more that feeling of accomplishment that they share with us. And that's super important to me and to our business models, that people are connecting with the work beyond just what it looks like.
Well, it's kind of like everybody hates practice, but they love playing the game, right? So when you get to the set, that's when all that other, let's just call it mess that you've gone through, now you actually get to play.
Yeah.
Right? So it's worth it to get to that.
Yeah, exactly. And luckily for many of the clients we work with, they don't have to deal with the mess. They get to meet with us, a few times. We get to work them through the process and ideas, and help them, work with us to come up with the direction. And then, the next time that they have an opportunity to experience it is on set, and when things are rocking and rolling and having fun. So, my number one goal on set is to be laughing and smiling and trying to make as many good jokes as possible and as few bad jokes as possible. But for me, I can't tell the difference.
Well, that's not what this show is about. This show is about being serious.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, your company has grown, obviously, since the inception. Where are you transitioning now?
Yeah, so that's so the company continued to grow in a very traditional way, more space, more people, and that's inevitably the path that I thought it went. Like I said earlier, much to a lot of entrepreneurs' dismay, I didn't go into this thinking I could make $1 million with this company. I just was really excited about what I was doing, and translated that excitement to other people, and they were excited, and we just grew it from there. But for me, what the company looks like now is really focusing in on the things that we're extremely good at. Again, providing great consulting opportunities for businesses that might be smaller, or that maybe they're just in a transition phase, or they're looking to onboard some people into either a marketing or creative capacity, and they need support with what that could look like, and how to utilize those resources. And while also providing companies that need it the opportunity to work with us and make content. So we're really diversifying. In the past, it was always, you have to hire us to do a project or to do a campaign, and we're going to see that from start to finish. And now we want to have an opportunity to serve people in a greater capacity, where we can actually work with them one-on-one or in a small team, help them with their creative challenges, and then as needed, bring on that production capacity to do photography, video, virtual reality experiences in a way that is actually we can see the path ahead, and we can see that it's going to return for the company, as opposed to in the past it was all project-based work. The company, they would have an idea, or somebody had said you should make a video, and then they do that, but then they didn't necessarily always have the resources they needed to be successful after that. We want to fill that gap and be able to really start them off on the right foot and see it through, all the way through distribution, so that way they really can get the most out of it. And so content creation was a heavy and important part of our company in the past. We were more of a production company focused on the services, and now it's more the creative consulting, the creative direction being the focus, so that we can really help people on the front end, making sure that they're making good choices, that they're properly inspired, and that their decisions and their ideas are backed up by, you know, data and things that support the success of the project or the success of the campaign. And being able to translate that creative process for them into their lives as well. Like, I would love to have more opportunities to sit down with business owners, with people in the community that are, whether they're starting companies, whether they're, you know, CEOs of their companies, and be able to sit down with them and to better not just understand what it is that they're trying to do to grow their business and how creative services can help that, but to better understand how they can use creativity to, like, really invigorate themselves and their teams to, like, have fun and to make an impact in the community, and, like, really connecting the dots there.
So it's a big part of your business, not just taking pictures and making video and being creative that way, but you actually do a lot of education. So you can actually, you know, to reiterate, as this is a entrepreneur and business radio show, you can actually have a company like myself, Freedom Windows. I could go in and meet with you, and you may not take any pictures or do anything on my website. You can literally just teach me how I can implement my emotions and creativity into all the marketing I'm doing to try to get more customers, even into my sales.
Exactly, yeah, because a lot of times people, you know, they know that there's something that they're either avoiding or something they just haven't really made the time to do, and a lot of times it's just being able to get in front of their customers more or on a more professional level. And so it requires, like, you know, nowadays, like, the need for content is so high, but the resources that would go along with that need aren't really there to match it. And so one of the things I really enjoy doing is going in and finding out, okay, like, what can we do to support this small business? Can we teach them how to make better cell phone photos? You know, can we, like, if they have an intern, can we, like, work with that intern to figure out, like, what is the strategy behind the social media posts, as opposed to, like, just, okay, let's just make sure we're posting our projects periodically, and really educating them on, like, what's going to be the best way to communicate that story, because eventually that business will grow to a size where they're going to need larger production.
Me posting a picture on my social media of a window that I installed versus kind of a really creative way to post that with a story behind it that can elicit some sort of emotion from the person who looks at it. As opposed to there's a window.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? That brings up a good point. Ryan, like, a lot of times when he'll post something, we'll reshare it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. In your opinion, this is my opinion, and I've never said this to Ryan.
I should quit.
But if he does the job, whatever it is, whether it's Windows or automotive, whatever, if I see you, the chances of me wanting to do business with Ryan goes up, because I know what a window looks like. I know what a house looks like.
Yeah.
I don't care if Ryan didn't even hang the shutter. The intuitively, I would look at it and say, that guy must have done that job, and I can see him, because when you look at the window companies that really stand out, they either use a spokesperson or the owner or somebody that's supposed to be the owner. What would you say to him? Shouldn't he have his dome in his own pictures and video?
Yeah, it's so important, and this is where, like, for me, my business has really diversified over the years, where I was, like, hiding behind our brand and hiding behind what we are up to, and I'm slowly growing into, like, you know, basically, like, taking my own medicine when it comes to, like, people connect with, like, when it comes to small businesses, people connect with and support individuals for the most part. You know,
Is that why Papa John's all over everything, and then now he's not anymore?
But wait a minute. Think about that. If you
gotta be
they
careful.
made a poor choice with the Subway guy. But I think anybody's like,
But your point is there's a face behind the product.
Well, when we think about Apple, the people that are, let's say, 16 to 24 don't have the same ideation of Apple. Our group, well, you're much younger than I am, and Ryan is too, but our group looks at Steve Jobs. He created this revolution. We bought into the story. There isn't a story behind Apple anymore. So when you look at the fact that iPhones are still a big deal, because nobody else, they're taking the same tact as, this phone is the same as an iPhone. If Samsung decided that there was somebody behind it, that this is the person you're buying into, Apple transitioned from Steve Jobs when he passed away to using pictures of Bono and the Obamas and all that. So they still transitioned into, you're believing in a person, and that's why that product means something to you. And that's why I'm saying, when it comes to Freedom Windows, you don't even have to speak, but if I see you at a property and I know, and I see it over and over again, that's where I would buy in. You know,
Yeah.
when we had Mina in here last week, She got a call from a doctor, not because of a commercial. We hadn't even run the commercials yet. Somebody saw her dancing on Instagram and laughing in another video where she was recording a commercial. It hadn't even aired. But because they saw her personality, they
Right.
bought in. And that's, I mean,
Yeah.
when we're talking about marketing, you are trying to, what did you say about sales? It's transference of
Well,
knowledge.
it's a transference of information, and
Right.
obviously that information comes from knowledge. But also, you know, Mike, a big part of what I do is, you know, hypnotherapy and NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and I work with a lot of those type of things. And what we've learned is that you can alter a person's state of being. Just like when a dentist, speaking of Mina and being in the dentist and all that, if I'm sitting there and I hear a drill in the other room and I'm like, I don't know if I want to go in here and get my teeth worked on, and the dentist says, oh, trust me, we've had probably 100 patients come through here doing the same procedure as you are about to have, and it went perfect, it was smooth, and they all walked out of here with a smile. All of a sudden now I'm relaxed. I went from fear and almost panic and anxiety to relaxed based on maybe one or two sentences that the dentist said to me. And we can do that in sales. We can do that through picture. We can do that through art. We can elicit feelings and emotions and, as you mentioned, vibrations. I mean, our whole being is made out of energy, and we can alter that state of energy in good ways, but also in bad ways. So that's why we have to be very careful how we're doing it.
Well, I think also, you know, when you think of when people, I don't know when this became a trend to call something a big box store. But, you know, when they talk about furniture company, we're not like the big box store.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know who you are anyway, because when I go, you're in a huge box warehouse with couches on, right? But they're not differentiating themselves. They're comparing themselves with somebody that is a like-minded thing. If you are doing the right thing, and you're more the expert than I am, I'm just saying from my point of view in doing marketing, it's people buy what they believe in,
Mhm.
right? So if the creativity behind it makes me feel, if it elicits emotion, I will buy it, right? Everything that you're creating is not for the person you're creating it for, it's for the consumer that wants to buy it.
Yes.
And if almost 70% of the U.S. economy is based on us buying things, there is a need for what you do,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm. That's true.
Subliminal messaging.
Well, that's all it is. But again, a picture can mean 1,000 things to 1,000 different people. As long as out of 1,000 of those people, you get 100 of them to buy it, you won, right? Less than 10% of the people have to buy something for
Well,
you to win.
that's what sales is like I said, it's a transference of knowledge, but you're transferring that knowledge. Just like if a social studies teacher is teaching a class social studies, there's two classes. One class, the teacher's getting all of the students to have fun. They can't wait for, you know, Mr. Johnson's class at 7th period. And the other teacher, kids are falling asleep, they can't stay in the class, or failing out, or they're not doing well in the testing. We got the same book, the same class, the same economy, the same school, everything's the same. The only thing maybe different is the person teaching it.
Right.
Right? And so we know as a salesperson, I've seen so many companies with all these sales personnel and staff, and one person can't sell anything, the other person is selling $2 million a year. What's the difference? And the one person's complaining, well, this and that, and the economy, and the other person's going, I don't know what you're talking about. This is the greatest economy ever to sell. Look how much I just sold.
Right.
Obviously, one person has a different attitude, different belief. They're able to transfer the knowledge in a way that the receiver is very emotional and able to make decisions based on that information. So
I just thought of something that I was thinking when you were saying that about the movie Glengarry Glen Ross.
right.
When,
Classic.
when you got the guy who's down on his luck and he's willing to call anybody. And then you got the other guy that's not even coming to the meeting, Al Pacino, it's a fantastic movie. But when he couldn't care less about anything that's going on, he's going to take his time with his person. He's going to get that guy to buy in. If you ever sold anything, I don't care if you sold gum at the movie theater, if you're selling somebody, it's a perfect dichotomy to look at and go, he does not care about anything but that person in front of him, and he's going to get him to buy in. The other guys don't believe in what they're doing, they just know they have to do it. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are doing mediocre work to sell it versus putting their whole being into it. Like what you're doing, your work is representative of you. So when you let it go, it's still part of you, but you're letting somebody else buy it and use it for themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to be invested in the other person's success, and the only way to do that again is through listening, connection, like being able to really understand what it is that they are trying to accomplish, and being like supporting them in a way that they probably aren't being supported by others, by going beyond listening and actually like going up to bat for them. Because yeah, coming up with those ideas that maybe are like higher risk or maybe not what other people would have expected, like you have to like be able to say like, this is actually why I think this is going to be best, and being able to give someone, you know, an option to work with you to the capacity of saying, I really want you to be successful, and what that looks like right now for where you're at with your company is me teaching you how to use your camera better, or teaching your assistant.
I think at the end of the day, you have to be able to, no matter what business you're in, no matter what you're trying to achieve, you have to be able to transfer the idea, because someone could have ideas all day long.
Yeah.
But if you, like we all three could take a same picture of a tree in the backyard.
Mhm.
Whoever can take that picture in a way, the same tree, nothing about the tree is different, but whoever can take a picture of that tree in a way that elicits a lot of creativity, or AKA emotion,
Yeah.
that's the person who's going to be like able to get their point across in a way that's understandable.
I would take the best picture. I think we agree.
Yeah.
I
I'm not
do
sure
want
about that.
What do you know? You're in creative. What I want to ask you, and I know we're running out of time, so I know this is not a real quick answer, but we talked about this in the green room. You said that you wish people had in their budget, when they put it in their business plan, that they really allocated that as that was not just a service you're paying for, but that is a part of what you do every day.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't just take your answer, but again, what do you feel about that? Because a lot of people, the first thing, if things are going bad, they cut marketing.
Mhm.
If you go silent, people aren't coming. You're perpetuating your problem even more.
Yeah. So I think the big takeaway is invest in your own ideas, like, because you invested in your business, you invest in your brick and mortar, into the product, into development, into your services, but invest, have enough faith in your ideas to invest into some creative assets, whether that's photo, video, whether that's new virtual experiences. Invest in a way that's going to really show people outwardly online what it is you're about, so that way you're not just a great experience when they come into your store, that lives on out there, and figure out a way to do it often. And so that investment is more an investment in your ideas, and that will have a huge return if you actually allocate the resources that are needed to where you're at with your business. For some people that's going to be a couple $100, others it could be tens of thousands of dollars, but really put some money behind the visual aspect of your brand, the communication that happens with the client when they're not in front of you, and you'll start building an army of loyal brand ambassadors, people that are out there advocating for you because they're connected to your ideas, because you're actually showing them and communicating those ideas.
And marketing is an investment, it's not an expense, and people look at it the exact wrong way. You cut back on your advertising, it's like you went out of business. And that includes creative. If you have stale creative, if you have a bad website, if you have bad radio commercials or TV commercials, you're doing yourself more harm than good. By saving the money, you've got to be impactful, so make sure when you do it, and you do it long term. You tell people how they can get a hold of you again. We're almost done here, but I really appreciate coming on. If anybody is looking for somebody to help with creative, come to Ryan first, but you can help them as well.
I appreciate being second best. The best way to get in touch with me is going to our website at uacreativestudios.com. You can find my contact information on there, see some of our amazing work, and also look me up on social under UA Chamberlain, spelled UA Chamberlain, LAIN at the end there.
Perfect. Rhino, any last thoughts? Any books?
Oh man, I mean, this whole show today was about creativity and eliciting emotion and states of being. I would say for anyone listening to YouTube or Google Esther Hicks, The Astonishing Power of Emotions, one of my favorite teachers of the law of attraction and things like that. And if you really want to get good at sales and entrepreneurship and life, you need to figure out how to handle your emotions and the energy around you. So.
And if you don't, watch ESPN.
Yeah.
That's going to be it for this week. Thanks for listening to 101, brought to you by Whiteside Chrysler Dodge Jeep. We'll see you next week.
Awesome. Beautiful. Go Browns.